We keep learning about who will lead in the future Trump administration, and it has places like 60 Minutes worried. Listen.
It's up to the new Republican majority in the Senate to decide whether these nominees are equipped to represent the American people.
But why stop there? Because Trump announced Brendan Carr, who will become the chair of the Federal Communications Commission. Carr posted on X, quote, "We must dismantle the censorship cartel and restore free speech rights for everyday Americans." So here to break it down with us is Matthew Peterson. He's our editor-in-chief, and Rebeka Zeljko. She's the politics reporter for Blaze Media. So, Rebeka, Carr announced that the FCC, they're going to put an end to all of the DEI policies that we've seen out there. So what do you think an FCC will look like under Carr's leadership?
I think an FCC under Carr's leadership is going to be very promising. Along with President Trump's many other cabinet picks and federal nominations, Carr is going to be a disruptor, which is exactly what the MAGA base is after. Carr, notably, like you mentioned, is really against this whole DEI idea. He said that it's for some reason become one of the priorities of the FCC, which he opposes. Notably, he's also been staunchly in favor of protecting free speech and opposing big tech's collusion with advertising companies that have been able to leverage money against platforms like ours, or maybe other platforms that they view as dissenting or maybe the wrong opinion. And so I think that it's very promising that Trump has been making all these other picks, and Carr is just the latest installment.
Rebeka, first, thank you so much for the work you're doing for us there in Washington. It's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. And you're manning the post by yourself without Chris. So we appreciate that. I have a general question though, because I'm very curious what your sense is of what both sides are thinking right now, just as you roam about the scene and talk to friends in our fair imperial city. I mean, what are the vibes and feelings on both sides right now?
Well, this has very much been a year for vibes when it comes to politics. I think that Dems in disarray has been a recurring theme, especially with these recent nominations. You just played that clip from 60 Minutes. They're clearly sort of losing their minds. And in terms of on the right-leaning side of things, the vibes are great. I think going into the election, there was a lot of cautious optimism just because we lived through the 2020 election. We lived through the last 4 years. I think everybody was hesitant to kind of take a win. But I think that ever since the election, things have really turned for the best, at least for Republicans and conservatives, not just in D.C., but across America.
On the left, when you get a sense of where Democratic staffers are at, for instance, has the shock worn off? Is it sort of like now we have to go to work, now the resistance starts, or is it still sort of disarray? Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this.
I think there's a little bit of both. I think notably in Harris's speech following the election, she said that, we have to get back to work, that the fight doesn't end here, all these things. But anecdotally, a lot of my friends who were maybe on the left or staffers that I've befriended that are maybe politically on the other side of things, I think there's still a lot of that residual panic that they're kind of working through. Of course, they have taken some major losses, not just in the executive, but also in the Senate and in the House. Now they've all fallen in favor of the GOP. And so I think there's an acknowledgement that there's a lot of work that they need to do, but it's definitely there's a sense that this is going to be an uphill battle for them.
Well, you're there in D.C., but Mar-a-Lago is now really the center of the political universe. He has so many different meetings that are going on there every day. And there are so many different Florida politicians that he's chosen for his administration. So when we look at Mar-a-Lago, right, is it significant now that this is becoming essentially a winter White House?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the fact that you have seen so many appearances, not just from his political allies like Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy, but also from world leaders like most recently Javier Milei from Argentina, I think that it is really a testament to the fact that Washington, D.C. is, bottom line, losing political and cultural significance. And I think that plays to Trump's favor. A lot of people criticize Trump and his most recent nominations for the fact that they don't necessarily have political experience or experience in government. That, of course, is their selling point, not just for Trump, but for a lot of his allies. I think a lot of people are really sick and tired of the status quo that takes place in D.C., this establishment, this idea of draining the swamp has become increasingly popular over the last decade. And I think that the latest example of that is the fact that Mar-a-Lago is becoming increasingly influential, not just culturally, but especially politically.
Yeah, you could just, I mean, if this was, if this was reversed, right, as we like to say, you'd have every, major channel talking about the magic of Mar-a-Lago, the excitement, the joy, the incredible partying going on and all the interesting people there. But as it is, that's not the case. But to demonstrate the power, right, of this place, there's another pair of people who made a trek recently down to Mar-a-Lago, an unexpected pair, and that would be our friends Mika and Joe. Morning, Joe. All of a sudden, right, from Hitler to, hi, how's it going? We should reopen lines of communication for the first time in 7 years, and they were going to, chat with the Donald. What do you make of that? Is that a hopeful sign of communication across party lines, or what?
I mean, a few things there. First things first, I personally wouldn't have a meeting with Hitler. So that just kind of goes to show the dishonesty that we all knew was there, but it's kind of reinforcing this idea that they're just lying through their teeth for the last, 8 years or so. I think that it also, I will say objectively, even though I disagree with a lot of the criticisms that have come from establishment media across the board, but especially commentators like Joe and Micah, I think that it is objectively the right decision to reopen communications with the most politically relevant person on the planet. I mean, that's your job as a reporter, as a commentator. It's crucial to have these lines of communication. And so I will say that I sort of doubt the how honest they are being with this gesture, because of course they've been extremely critical of the former president, and coincidentally, although I wouldn't necessarily say it's a coincidence, their ratings have really plummeted since election day.
Yes,
I believe
it
was
have.
the New York Times that reported that they have dipped about double digits since in just 2 weeks. And so I mean, they're sort of at a crossroads where they're deciding between whether or not they want to sink or swim, and so they're sort of doing the painful but necessary thing for MSNBC to survive.